venue for the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. As we anticipate the arrival of the Service Chiefs and the Inspector General of Police, permit me to make welcome and recognize the presence of the following individuals that have come all the way to grace this occasion. May I make welcome and recognize the presence of Comrade Noah Emmanuel, National President, Nigerian Non-Governmental Association for Literacy Support Services. You're welcome, sir. May I also make welcome and recognize the presence of Dr. Ahmed Abubakar Audi, Commandant General, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. Also in our midst this morning is the Controller General, Federal Fire Services, Mr. Jaji Olola Abdul Ganiu. You are most welcome, sir. May I also make welcome and recognize the presence of the Controller General of Immigration Service, Mrs. K.N. Nandap. You are most welcome, ma'am. Also in our midst this morning is the Acting Controller General, Nigerian Correctional Service, Sylvester Nwakuche Ndidi, MNI. You are most welcome. May I also make welcome and recognize the presence of the Corps Marshal Federal Road Safety Corps, Mr. Malam Shehu Mohammed. You are most welcome, sir. Distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, it is still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade, where activities climaxing the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. As we continue to await the arrival of the Service Chiefs, it may interest you to know that the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade is not exclusive to Nigeria alone. Rather, it is a very important event that is celebrated worldwide. In the past, Nigeria, being a member of the Commonwealth of Nations, used to hold the celebration with other members on the 11th day of November annually to honor members of the armed forces who died during the First and Second World Wars. This is so because the First World War officially ended at the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. However, in order to reflect our own peculiar historical experience as a nation, January 15th of every year was selected as a date to observe the Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade to commemorate the end of the Nigerian Civil War, which ended with the surrender of the Biafran troops to the federal troops on 15th January 1970. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I make welcome and recognize the presence of the Director General Voice of Nigeria, Mr. Jibrin Ndache. You are most welcome, sir. Shortly, we shall be expecting the arrival of the Service Chiefs and the Inspector General of Police. As we anticipate the arrival, may I make welcome and recognize the President, Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association and the wife of the Chief of Defense Staff, Mrs. Ogogo Gwabin Musa. You are most welcome, ma'am. Also in our midst this morning is the President, Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association and the wife of the Chief of Army Staff, Mrs. Menan Femi Oluide, here ably represented by the Deputy President, Nigerian Army Officers' Wives Association, and the wife of the Chief of Policy and Plans, Army, Mrs. Bilkisu Ibrahim. May I also welcome and recognize the presence of the President, Naval Officers' Wives Association, and the wife of the Chief of Naval Staff, Mrs. Ijoma Blessing Ogala, here ably represented by the Vice President, Naval Officers' Wives Association, Mrs. Zainab Akpan. You are most welcome, ma'am. May I also welcome and recognize the presence of the President, Nigerian Air Force Officers' Wives Association, and the wife of the Chief of Air Staff. Architect Mrs. Rekia Abubakar, represented by Mrs. Esther El Tukudo. You are most welcome, ma'am. Also in our midst this morning is the President, Police Officers' Wives Association, and the wife of the Inspector General of Police, Dr. Mrs. Elizabeth Egbetokun. You are most welcome, ma'am. It's still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade venue for the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. Shortly, we shall be expecting the arrival of the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police. As we anticipate the arrival, permit me to please call on the mass band once again to keep us entertained. The band, please.
I've already announced. I'll still keep announcing. Thank you very much.
Everybody want me to announce.
No. hand.
Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, most distinguished invited guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, this is announcing the arrival of the service chiefs and the Inspector General of Police. Just being received there by the Commander Gas Brigade as he leads them to the saluting days for the General Salutes. We shall be witnessing that shortly. Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Olufemi Oluide, the Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Hassan Abubakar, and the Inspector General of Police, IGP Kayode Egbetokun. You are most welcome, sir. It is still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade venue for the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, this is announcing the arrival of the Chief of Defense Staff. We can see the Chief of Defense Staff just being received there by the Commander Gas Brigade as he leads him to the saluting days for the General Salutes. We shall be witnessing that shortly. Final salute we just listened to heralded the arrival of the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa. You are most welcome, sir. It is still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade venue for the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. While we await the arrival of more dignitaries, permit me to make welcome and recognize the presence of the former Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Olonishakin. You are most welcome, sir. May I also make welcome and recognize the presence of the Director General State Security Service, Mr. Oluwatosin Adiola Ajayi, MON. You are most welcome, sir. Also in our midst this morning is the Comptroller General Customs Service, B.A. Adeni, ably represented by the Deputy Comptroller General, B.M. Jibo. You are most welcome, sir. It is still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding as we await the arrival of other dignitaries that will grace this occasion. Permit me to hand over the microphone to my co-compare in the announcement desk, Lieutenant Odoyle Bilkisi Olokodana, to give us a brief history of origin of colors on ceremonial parades. Olokodana.
Thank you, Captain Anebi Abapa. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen. While we await the arrival of dignitaries that will grace this occasion, permit me to acquaint you with the original colors on ceremonial parades. The carriage of colors on ceremonial parades in the military is an ancient tradition which dates back to centuries. The origin of colors began in the early days when men fixed their family badges to a pole and held it aloft in battle for the dual purpose of indicating their position and as a rallying point should the occasion arise. When armies began to adopt a system of regimentation at the beginning of the 17th century, each company was allotted a color, a custom which persisted till present days, known as the trooping and presentation of colors. Distinguished invited guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, to interest you to know that the sight of the colors creates a feeling of pride in soldiers and ex-soldiers. From ancient history, it has served as an inspiration for heroic acts of self-sacrifice. Since then, colors have become the symbol of the fighting spirit of a regiment because they bear the battle honors and badges granted to the regiment in commemoration of the gallant deeds performed by its members from the time it was raised. In the olden days, victories were sometimes expressed in terms of the number of enemy soldiers captured. This association of the colors with the heroic deeds of the units decorated on them has led to the custom of regarding the colors with veneration. The fact that colors are consecrated and presented before taking into use and are laid up in sacred buildings after service helps to maintain the atmosphere of veneration with which they are surrounded. Colors are presented to combat a combat support unit regiment only. It is the responsibility of the combat unit presented with the color to protect it. The capture of these colors means the defeat in battle situation. In line with regimentation, these colors are retired every 15 to 20 years and new ones issued by the President and Commander-in-Chief. In line with this age-long tradition, we have 4 colors today in the color party for today's parade. The colors are carried by commissioned officers who are called the ensigns to the colors. Colors carried during ceremonial parades are called the national and regimental colors. On parade this morning, we have the national color, the Nigerian Army regimental color, Nigerian Navy color, and the Nigerian Air Force color. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, permit me at this point to hand over the microphone to Captain Godfrey Anebi Abakpa to continue with the commentary.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Obilkisu Olokodana, for that brief origin of colors on ceremonial parades. As we still await the arrivals of the Honorable Minister of Defense, the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, and the Honorable Minister of the State for Defense, may I welcome and recognize the presence of Permanent Secretaries, Director Generals of Federal Ministries and Parastatals, as well as Honorable Ministers and members of the National Assembly that have come all the way to grace this very important event. You are most welcome, Your Excellencies. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, it may interest you to know that the parade commander for today's occasion is no other than Major Hamza Yakubu Musa. He was born on 26 May 1995 in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. He hails from Etsako, West Local Government Area of Edo State. He attended Hail Said Model Primary School, Abuja, and Federal Government College, Kwali, Abuja for his secondary education. Major Musa gained admission into the prestigious Nigerian Defense Academy in the year 2013 as a member of 65 regular course. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Political Science and Defense Studies. Major Musa has served in the following units: 35 Battalion, Katsina, 158 Task Force Battalion, Gubio, and presently 7 Guards Battalion. Major Musa has also attended the following Nigerian Army courses: Young Officers Infantry Course, Basic Airborne Course, Basic Rigger Course, Company Amphibious Operations Course, and Advanced Airborne Course. Jump Master Major Musa is decorated with the following medals: General Operations Medal, Operation Lafia Dole Medal, Operation Tura Takai, Wango Medal, Nigerian Army Purple Heart Medal. It may interest you to know that at his leisure, he enjoys playing football. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, that was an abridged version of the curriculum vitae for the parade commander for today's occasion, Major Hamza Yakubu Musa. It is still Dignitaries' arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade, where activities climaxing the 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. Shortly, we are expecting the arrivals of the Honorable Minister of Defense, the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, and the Honorable Minister of State for Defense. While we anticipate their arrivals, may I once again please call on the mass band to give us some entertainment. Thank you. Band, thank you, band, thank you. Thank you very much, Mass Band. Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, most distinguished invited guests, very senior officers, ladies and gentlemen. While we await the arrival of the next dignitaries, permit me to make welcome and recognize the presence of this morning is the former Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal I.O. Amao. You are most welcome, sir. Band, can continue, please. Thank you. Thank you, band. Band, thank you. Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, the Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, and the Inspector General of Police, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, this is announcing the arrival of the Honorable Minister of Defense, the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, and the Honorable Minister of State for Defense. Just been received here by the Commander Gas Brigade as he leads them to the saluting days for the fanfare. We shall be witnessing that shortly. The fanfare we just listened to heralded the arrival of the Honorable Minister of Defense, His Excellency Mohammed Badari Abubakar, the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, His Excellency Nyesom Wike, and the Honorable Minister of State for Defense, His Excellency Dr. Bello Mohammed Matawali. You are most welcome, Your Excellencies. It is still dignitaries' arrival unfolding. And as we await the arrival of more dignitaries, permit me to make welcome and recognize the presence of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, His Excellency, Mr. George Akume, CON, and the National Security Advisor, Nuru Ribadu, MNI. You are most welcome, Your Excellencies. Distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, it may interest you to know that the Defense Health Maintenance Limited has a stand here at the Cenotaph for the purpose of today's occasion. It may interest you to know that the Defense Health Maintenance Limited is a health maintenance organization for the Armed Forces of Nigeria. DHML is owned by the Armed Forces of Nigeria and the Ministry of Defense and is statutorily tasked with the administration of health insurance for both the serving and retired personnel of the Armed Forces of Nigeria and their families. DHML has been in continuous operation for the past 19 years, being registered as Health Maintenance Organization in July 2005. The current Managing Director, Chief Executive Officer is Surgeon Rear Admiral Aziz Bayo Afolayan, who is the principal, one spouse, and 4 biological children below the age of 18 years. Additional enrollees include a child above the age of 18 years who is still in school, not married, and not employed. These are considered for coverage with a little annual token. Additional children after the 4th child may also be considered for health insurance coverage, but may attract an annual token. Source of funding. The federal government of Nigeria is the sole source of funding for the health insurance coverage for both serving and retired armed forces personnel and their families. The requirement for registration of military retirees include passport photographs, 1 each for the principal, his spouse, and the eligible children. Birth certificates of the biological children issued by the National Population Commission. DHML corporate headquarters is at Legislative Quarters, Apo, Gudu District of the Federal Capital Territory. Additionally, DHML has state offices in all the states of the Federation, each headed by a state manager. Free DHML information booklets are available for free pickup at the DHML stand here at the Cenotaph. Serving and retired personnel and the general public are encouraged to pick up the free information booklets. Thank you. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen, shortly we shall be expecting the arrival of the Chief Justice of Nigeria.
We have presently at the cenotaph here members of the diplomatic corps. We also have the Chief Justice of Nigeria at the event venue. We have members of the diplomatic corps on ground.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have the Minister of Defense present here. The Minister of State for Defense.
Your Excellency, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Honorable Ministers,
Security Advisor, the Chief of Defense Staff, Service Chiefs, and the Inspector General of Police, distinguished guests, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen. This is announcing the arrival of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. Just being received there by the Commander Gas Brigade as he leads her to the saluting days for the fanfare. We shall be witnessing that shortly. Thank you.
Captains of industries present, members of the diplomatic corps, while awaiting the arrival of other dignitaries to the event. That is the arrival of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. The Chief Justice of Nigeria had just observed the general salute. On ground, we already have the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Ministers of Defense, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Captains of Industries, the Chief of Defense Staff, other senior military officers, members of the Nigerian Legion.
the fanfare we just listened to heralded the arrival of the Chief Justice of Nigeria, Your Lordship, Justice Kudirat Kekereekun, CFR. You are most welcome, Your Lordship. With the same dignitaries arrival unfolding here at the National Arcade venue for the 2025 Armed Forces celebration and Remembrance Day Parade. As we await the arrival of more dignitaries, permit me to make welcome and recognize the presence of the head of Civil Service of the Federation, Mrs. Didi Wilson Jack. You are most welcome. Shortly, we shall be expecting the arrivals of the Senate President and the Honorable Speaker, House of Representatives. As we anticipate the arrival once more, may I call on the band to keep us entertained. The band, please.